Thanks for coming. Thanks for being here. Today I'm going to talk about some technical thingies. Can I be technical enough, or shall I be more casual? A bit? No? Very technical? Okay, very technical. Well, we'll see. So, actually today we'll discuss what exactly we do at King that our games make it to the tops. I won't touch marketing. I won't touch, ads and, the horrible, term of traffic. I will lean on that, but from the technical side. Also, I'll introduce a statement that games have to be designed in order to make it to the tops. But first, let's figure out why do you care? Why would you listen to me? Why what I say makes sense? Well, just because I have a bit of experience. I'm one of the first Unity employees. I joined Unity in 2009, I think. Actually, here in Vilnius, between Vilnius and Copenhagen. So for those of you who doesn't know, actually the mobile part of Unity Technologies, that was all Vilnius. So like Unity iPhone, then Unity Android started here, lots of Unity for Windows Phone and all that. So Unity Vilnius is quite a large office, and that's where I started. 6 years after, I left Unity for company called GameOn. That's 800 strong people company with, at the moment, they had 12 projects. 12 games. And now I'm at King. So everybody knows King, everybody loves King. Some of you hate, but that's good enough. I mean, meaning that we're the company that you care about. I'm mostly, my job title is King Evangelist, so the most badass title I could imagine, or people at King could imagine. So I kind of represent technical side of King. I represent it within technical interactions with the game dev industry. When I don't talk about King, or Unity, I talk about game jams. I care about game jams. I think that game jams are important to foster creativity and to make people care about games. Game developer streaming, that's also, I keep repeating this thing, that's a very cool thing, and no one just has figured it out, how to make it in a way that not 100 people view the streams of game development process, but hundreds of thousands, all the millennials care. Game engine roundtables, that's what I also do. I put together Unity, Unreal, Amazon, and all the other engines that matter, and we figure out what's cool, how to work together. So that's what I do. And now here's the slide. I figured out that it makes sense to start with a final slide instead of come to it step by step. Here's the final slide of my presentation. What should have been a final slide of my presentation, the takeaway. Basically, it states that, okay, so any game consists, especially if we're talking about if we're talking about games today, we think, okay, what is a game? In most cases, we think, okay, that's a mobile game. If it's a mobile game, then that's a free-to-play game. Right, because we want to earn some money, and that's why it's mobile and free-to-play. When we're talking about a mobile free-to-play game, it's immediately, okay, that's a thin client and a very thick and big server, operation side. So we have to do all these integrations with, social networks. We have to care that the game is multi-platform, with a player can start on iOS, then continue on Android, and then come to the office and do the magic on the Facebook. So the social thing is social interaction. Then the game should be persistent, so the progress is stored somewhere in the cloud. Then you also don't want, to manage whatever stuff costs in the game. You want to do this from the admin panel, so that's also the cloud part. So all these operational things as in you're operating the game, right? I'm just trying to find the understanding in the eyes of the people in the background, which is hard. So the game, multiple clients, hundreds of thousands of game installs, like millions of game installs. You tweak all that from like the cloud, from your admin panels. So you operate the game, you issue new updates, new levels, new stuffs, new features. You don't want people to re-download your game from the stores. You want that the content is just pushed onto the client. So that's operating. We do this, and that's a core within King's portfolio, like mostly common code, mostly shared code. We call this operation capabilities. We have a King SDK that's kind of fences game dev teams from all these, cloud servers, admin panels, whatsoever, non-game dev things. King SDK that is shared across the teams, fixed APIs. So King game dev teams, they use King SDK with fixed API to talk to all this, backend, whatever, backend. They don't care about backend. I mean, they're games teams. However, they work on the game, which is game's runtime. And here we go, 3 icons. How many icons do you know from here? 1? Who knows 1 icon? Right, who knows 2 icons? Oh no, we have default people in the room. 3rd icon, which is a magic. You shouldn't know what the 3rd icon means, because you haven't worked at King. That's King internal game engine called Fiction Factory. Some of the Candy franchise games, I think most of them, have been done with this engine. This engine is exactly just like what would you imagine as an internal game engine is. It's like a bunch of SDKs, super hard to use, like some, bunch of editors, like here is the tool to edit level, here is the tool to, animate character, here is like the something complex, very hard to use. And obviously whenever you make Candy Crush, then something else Crush, then something else Crush, then something Saga. So each of the games, and this is how you make games, high-performance games with your own engine. You kind of are focused on the game, not on the engine, meaning that you have 100 games, 100 copies, non-compatible of game engines. That's what happened with Fiction Factory, and that's what we wanted to solve. And that's what we're trying to solve with default. That this is a full-fledged game engine that we use to make top grossing, cool games. So it's internal, but it's available for free. But I'll touch that later. My point here is the game runtime is Crucial, and that's what King teams work, and it's fanced from the operational capabilities by the means of King SDK. I promise to be technical. Now Unity, what's about Unity? Actually, we do use Unity. We do use Unity a lot, but we never have shipped a Unity game. Why? Why we have never shipped a Unity game? Because we have something we call, benchmarks. So the battery consumption. A person in the morning goes to the office, they have 100% battery. In the evening, they commute back home with 30% of the battery, maybe 20% of the battery. They kind of, if they know the game would suck off their battery, they wouldn't launch the game. And we want people to actually launch our game. So we care about the battery. We optimize our game engines and our games. So the battery drain is minimal. CPU consumption, GPU consumption, that's obvious. That's what you all do. However, we also care about gingerbreads. So we have Mantas who know what gingerbread is. Do we have anybody old enough, same as Mantas, who knows what gingerbread is? Yes, we have few more old people in the room. Yes, so Android too. We have to support that. That's still almost 2% of our audience. and that's lots of people. Some of them even pay. So righto. Then network performance. We've discussed that the games have to be operated, meaning that the games talk to the server all the time, and the network drops. I mean, there are trains, there are planes, there are tunnels, and all that. So despite the game clients, I mean, like the game installed in people's devices, they have to talk to the server. They have to not rely on the network, and like we optimize it heavily. Storage consumption. I mean, it's Christmas soon. Then there is like this green guy day, some other festivities, and we have to push updates to the game, like updates, new levels, new content, whatever, Halloween costumes, whatsoever. This gets stored somewhere on people's phones, right? And like whenever they consume all these Halloween costume levels or whatsoever, and they forget about Halloween, the content doesn't have to stay on their devices, it has to vanish. Otherwise, it's not good. So continue. So we have all kind of these benchmarks, and one of the most crucial things is actually the startup time. The idea here is that, like, the patterns in a way people actually play games on mobiles. So they have very short sessions. Right? They don't know how short their sessions would be. Maybe they're waiting for a bus. Maybe they're in a queue. Maybe while they're on toilet, which is also unpredictable in sometimes. So, but they know it's kind of a short session, like 7 minutes, maybe 5, maybe 8. Depending, like if you've eaten Mexican, for example. So they want to have a meaningful interaction. They want to finish something. They want to feel accomplished with the game, I mean. So the gameplay, the time from like, okay, I have this time, I have this minutes, like I want to play, like, okay, I strike the device, I click play, I click on the game icon, then the game has to boot up instantly-ish, like within seconds, even or whatever, on their iPhone 5S. And then there should be, big green button like play. So from the moment, like, okay, I have a minute, like to play, to the moment when they actually start, matching 3 flowers of 3 whatevers, 3 cropses, this startup time has to be minimal. And the sessions have to be designed in a way that people are able to accomplish something, like they feel satisfied from the gameplay. So that's why startup time is crucial, and that's why we do these benchmarks, and that's why we have to use our own engines, just pretty much as, for example, I guess, not current people, that's why they do this, and other people have to use their own engines. I mean, they want to tweak the performance of their game to the way that their marketing people who are actually doing this traffic thing, they're happy. So what I'm trying to say, from different angles, same statement, that runtime performance on the game is crucial for the performance, for the marketing performance. And we're coming back to my previous statements that the games has to be designed for the top charts. Like all these things that I've mentioned, that's like technical part plus game dev part. Right? So like all this marketing efforts, in order for them to work, in order for all these traffics and all that to work, like the game has to be performed from the technical side. So that's the crucial thing in what I really wanted to say, and that's the main thing of what we do and how we work. As kind of takeaway thingy, I've been mentioning default a few times, and you might have seen like the booths of default, like here, like with actual users doing this. So yes, so that's one of our internal technologies that we've just released with the world, released to the world, like shared with the world for free, no royalties, no anything. Well, first, just because like we can, we could release it. It's something that we use. For example, Blossom Blast Saga has been made with default. That's what we use internally, and we think it's cool enough, and we can just share it. It's exactly the same editor, like the same binary that our teams use, the same process. So like bi-weekly, we release a new version of the editor with new features, with bug fixes to our teams at King. Exactly same channel like for everybody else to get the same thing. And well, maybe use it, maybe not use it, but that's kind of what you can immediately take away from this presentation and see if your processes, if your mindset is compatible with our technology. However, that's a very important slide, that I'm not converting you to default whatsoever. I'm not saying this is like the main game engine in the world. I still think Unity is. And however, in some cases, where you actually know what you're doing, if you're not happy with some aspects of Unity performance, with the workflow, you can give it a chance and see if a game engine, if default is compatible with your needs. It's very important to be cold-blooded, like we are, at least like we treat ourselves cold-blooded. We treat game engine, not with sympathies, but like there are tasks to do, there are things to accomplish, there are certain numbers, certain benchmarks, certain things we want to accomplish with our games. And well, this is how we pick technology. Obviously, since default is our internal technology, when a games team comes and says, you know what, like we cannot optimize our game to be compatible with to be good enough in terms of certain benchmarks that we run, and we run our benchmarks. I think on a monthly basis we have like this, like all the team leads get PDFs with games, and like there are best plays, like top 10 from the top, top 10 from the bottom, like the worst battery performance, the best battery performance, the worst CPU performance, the best CPU performance, and like the charts. So we have these charts internally. And when the teams are developing new games, like they look into these charts and like the up to battery consumption in milliwatts. So like we just have these numbers. So what I'm trying to say that game engine is just a tool. It does certain things and doesn't do other things, and like the technology is picked up to the process and to the team and to the task and to the game. This slide, I started it with the bullet points, as in like what are the main use cases or default, like why, who can use it, like who can benefit from it, why, where, what. It was all bullet points, and then I was like, does it actually tell anything about game engine? Like, yeah, okay, these bullet points, the use cases. Well, it's actually the games that tell about game engine. So these are the games made with default. You can see games made in Lithuania, you can see games made in Belarus, you can see games made in, well, Sweden, Moscow, and some of the teams are here, so feel free to talk to them. But the short story is that the engine, default game engine, is good if you're making an HTML5 game, as in the game that can run in the browser in this device. On the Facebook, for example, Blossom Blast doesn't have any Flash or any other fallbacks. It's pure HTML5 made with default. And that's a saga. So, like targeted at casual players. So we think that this technology is good enough for casual players to play these games. And we're working with Facebook and other social networks kind of for a tighter, better integration. You care about multi-platform. For example, the API to purchase, like for in-app purchase in HTML5 and iOS is the same. Like the same code runs on multiple targets, like we abstracted. Scripting is in Lua, rendering loop is open, that's OpenGL, so you just go and like do the thing you want. Vertex and fragment shaders, that's GLSL. Profiling is on device and remotely, so you don't have to attach these profilers, the complex thing. Like, no, it just works. The engine is developed with a philosophy and the way we work at King, as in there is a very nice but very introvertish technical person on the team, and lots of artists, designers, and all that. So that, let's call that introvert a developer. So a developer works, in his corner, like with nice headphones, doesn't want to be disturbed, and everything works on his machine, like, SDKs, Xcodes, whatsoever. Designers work on Windows because, well, Max, Maya, all that. I mean, however they want to build. So they don't need to configure anything. The technical guy has done it. Like GitHub integration, all that. Like the engine is structured in a way that a single technical person solves stuff on his machine, everybody else is happy. This is our philosophy. This is how we work at King, and this is how we feel stuff has to be done. And to have a bit of time for questions, we'll quickly run to the takeaway once again. So the statement I had, the main one, was that the games have to be designed for the top grossing chairs from the technical side, from the game design side. And same statement, but once again, for those who just appeared in the room, is that the poor runtime performance might spoil all your marketing and operational efforts. I feel bright on that. Well, yes, and we have default and you have default. If you think your biorhythms and your needs might correlate, feel free to try it out or talk to the teams below. And yeah, it's cool for 2D, cross-platform, and they designed to perform on low-end devices and the web. With that, I want to thank you for your attention, and I am available for questions if you have any. We have a question, so someone has actually been listening. Which is good.
Hello.
Hey.
You said that King uses Unity a lot, but never shipped a game using Unity.
We even have a source.
Oh, so yeah. So I just wondered what other cases where Unity is used, because you said you use it a lot, but
Unity has the best editor the industry can offer, and everybody in the world can use Unity, right? So prototyping. That's the short answer. The long answer is that the way that the game development culture is structured within King, that we have a set of green lights, internal green lights, and which means teams have to pivot a lot. And in order to pivot fast, and in order to build prototype fast, I think Unity is still the best tool for that. I mean, obviously, it depends on the scope, but in most cases it is. In some cases, we do use internal tools. For example, when we're thinking, you know what, let's try to think, where can we bring Candy Crush next? So obviously, we would use internal tools. We would just clone, the repository and maybe build new levels with our internal tools. But if we're thinking about new things, new game mechanics, new franchises, we probably would use Unity for that. Yes, I can repeat the question. So you just shout.
I've played with default in your booth
yesterday,
and I've noticed some things. So one is, it seems you are required to have an account in the service. Is that right?
So the question is, do we need, does a default user need to have some account on King servers? The answer is, you log in with your Google account, Gmail, Google, Google login thingy. We're moving away from that. We are providing options since we didn't anticipate that, but apparently some people in the world are angry about at Google, and well, we have to tolerate that. In terms of where does your source code get stored? So indeed, we have a GitHub integrated, and indeed, by default, the source code is stored on King's GitHub service. That's not mandatory by any means. It's quite easy to change and like store wherever you need. The reason we implemented that we think the games should be made by multiple people with different skills, different talents, different backgrounds, and especially creative people. And I mean, go persuade your artists to use GitHub, like instantly from the very moment they start working on the game. So we integrated GitHub, and like there is like a single button update, right? And that's why the GitHub and King servers is integrated. But you're very free to move away from that.
But and all the assets are stored in Git, right?
Assets. Yes, I mean, so default has native Git support. You can use Git service and store stuff on wherever Git, or you can go by default and store stuff on the service we provide. Like that's Git integrated, stored on servers King pays for, like code, assets, everything.
Yeah, the reason I'm asking is just, sometimes with bigger games, you have a lot of assets, and then you have problems with Git and assets, especially if you iterate a lot and the assets change. It Git stores all the versions.
Yeah.
The repository is suddenly 20 gigabytes.
The question is, what do we do if our game is big and Git is not suitable to store the game? I don't think default is designed for big games. The main thing, the feature, the use case of default is exactly 2D games, mostly casual, or like smaller games for mobiles and HTML5. I wouldn't advise using default for larger games.
Okay, do we have more questions?
The question was, can I talk about better drain with Unity and default? I cannot, because first, we don't position ourselves as a Unity competitor. That's why I've been talking about Unity in a good way throughout this presentation and everywhere else. So we didn't just do these benchmarks. However, this morning, I've learned, I've met a very happy developer with big eyes. He was like, you know what? This is my iPad. I've been showing my default game for the whole morning. Like he's on this default booth. So people have been playing his game from the very morning to the very evening without any power attachments. And no, the iPad, I think, had still 7% of the battery. So that's the answer. And like this game wasn't optimized whatsoever for anything that's in-game in development. So it had, I think it had full-size textures and all that. So it was quite a thick game without any optimizations, no animation optimizations. It had to operate on these high-resolution textures, and like still, the whole day, 7-ish or whatever hours of gameplay, still 7% left. So, but I guess it's easier just to talk to the devs, since I haven't released a game in default in my life. And some of them did, so they might have something for you. And some of them have used Unity before. So, for example, Sneaky Box, they still use both Unity and default. So they have. I've seen Ludus in this room. Grab Ludus. There is Ludus. He might have something. Oh, may not. We have one more question. Eh?
Yes. So for the default engine, why was the language chosen, the Lua language? I mean, it's a rather obscure language, I think. Why not JavaScript, for example?
That's a question that lots of people ask. And there are lots of reasons to that. The short answer is that just default founders just thought it worked internally for internal teams. They just I can dive into the history. The short answer is that the engine just works. The whole default. Okay, I'll be much more technical now. So the whole default engine is a bunch of static buffers with the functions that operate on these static buffers. And so that's where the reactive instead of object-oriented programming comes over. So like everything is in messages. You don't have delegates. Like you have to forget all your singletons. You have to suffer without objects and all that. And Lua is just right choice for scripting, for non-object-oriented scripting. The downside is that we don't have proper editor for that. The industry doesn't have proper editor for that. But we're working on that. We have a better version of the editor, like the game jam editor with a proper code editor. In the meantime, people just attach Adam. And that's with the code. And Lua is fast, Lua is cross-platform, Lua just works, and it just suits the needs.
I can probably add to that Lua was specifically designed to be an embedded language, whereas JavaScript V8 is like this whole monster thing. So Lua is basically a scripting language designed to be embedded.
Also, people attach hacks. Some people, for some reason, hate Lua, but love hacks. And they have Lua hacks thingy, and it just works.
Okay, do we have more questions? Well, thank you very much.
Thank you.